First up, Simon, and then Diana Wickman. So I've just promoted Diana and Simon up, and they are the current leaseholders of the farm. So they'll be giving their presentation. Simon, Diana, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Hello.
I can too, Jen. Hi. Hi, everyone.
Well,
Hi, Diana. How are you?
I am well. All right.
Simon, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Anytime you guys would like to start. I hear you have a PowerPoint, so go ahead and feel free to share your screen if you'd like.
All right. Yep, we're bringing that up. All right. So this is the Peterson Farm Year 2 update. This was our field earlier this spring when we mowed before everything got really dry. I thought I'd start with our presentation from last year. This is kind of where we were at the end of wrapping up year 1. And I wanted to show kind of where we are year 2. So things in green are improvements, and items in yellow are things where we're still kind of working on it, where it's more or less the same. So we've increased our stocking level of the animals. We're up 16 from last year. We had 5 pigs this year, which is 3 more from last year, and they've been continuing to do brush control for us in additional areas on the farm. And we also brought in 9 guinea fowl, and 5 of those were actually surrenders from someone in Falmouth who couldn't keep them on her property anymore. And they've been doing excellent tick control in the right side, or what we call the barn field. We have worked hard on the barn renovation. We have a new roof on the greenhouse portion, the back portion of the barn where we lamb. We are just about done with the siding. We kind of got held up waiting for the town electrician during COVID to finish some work on the panel that was on the side. But that's done now, and so we should finish that up this fall. And we are going to work on replacing the asphalt roof this coming fall as well. We've been continuing to work on invasive plant control. That's definitely, as you guys know, going to be a long-term project for the farm. Again, we've been using the pigs, we've been doing mowing, we've been removing it mechanically by digging and pulling. And we've seen a huge increase in farm visitors, especially during COVID when it first started. We had people parking on the wood chips up where the old house was demolished, as well as up on the silo. So it's been good to see, people coming out and visiting the farm. And I'd say our lambing season was doubly as popular this year. So here's our growing flock under the tree in the main pasture, which is to the left as you walk down the path. And here's some of our babies from this year. This is the back side of the barn that we finished up earlier this spring. Got a nice roller door on there, and you can see the shingle siding where we replaced what used to be there, which was tar paper and falling apart wood. So that's kind of awesome. These are the guinea fowl that we brought in. They're a species from Africa, native to Africa, and they've been domesticated heavily, but they prefer to eat ticks more than anything else. So we've really enjoyed having them on the farm. They're the loudest farm animal. So again, here was our, year 2 plans and review, and we've met most of these goals. We still kind of have the question as to what to do with what we call the old goat barn, which is the barn that sits just in front of the main barn, where we've been keeping some construction equipment. I know when we took it over, they said that the goal was with that structure to get it out of there, that it was in no shape to stay around. And so we'd like to work with you guys going forward on a plan for what that should become. Again, we have a lot of interest in that structure or something staying there, because it's actually the only concrete foundation on the property, and that's really useful to us from a wool perspective. We're continuing with the invasive control. I feel like every year we'll probably be singing that refrain. It's going to be a long project, but we're making progress. And something we had mentioned in year 1 that we never really talked about in year 2 was restoration of an old pasture at the west side of the property. Right now, that area is just full of porcelain berry, a few larger locust trees, nothing really native in that area. And that's something we would be interested in working with you guys on converting into pasture before it, if that's, the wish of everybody, before it gets too far down the invasive path. It'd be nice to kind of pull it back if we do want to keep it as grassland. We did some extra things that we hadn't planned in year 2. We joined Buy Fresh, Buy Local Cape Cod, which was awesome. Our lamb and our pork was actually selected to appear at a local food night held at the West End Hyannis. Unfortunately, it got canceled due to COVID. Altogether, we supplied about 1,100 pounds of meat into the local community. We had the USDA actually come out with their state reps and take a look at Peterson Farm as an example of what the USDA grant program can do for farms. And obviously, you guys know they helped immensely with us getting the fence in there. And we've also had the Barnstable Land Trust approach us, and they're trying to convert their Fuller farm into a farm modeled after Peterson Farm. So we thought those were noteworthy things. We had a few things, obviously, this year that weren't expected. So I called these the speed bumps. We unfortunately had to close our lambing area during lambing season, which is something we don't like to do. We really like to have contact with community members up close during that time. And it just couldn't happen because COVID was just getting started. So that was unfortunate. We also ended up seeing a drastic price increase in hay. We feed a hay that's fed to horses. And when COVID started, people started hoarding everything, not only toilet paper, but I guess hay too. And we all of a sudden saw this jump in price to $10 a bale, which was kind of crazy. And then combined with the drought we're having right now, where we've been feeding a lot of hay. So we've ended up with about 1,000 bales this year at about $10 a bale. And yeah, so like I said, right now we've got those drought conditions going on. So we're, feeding the sheep hay. We're really trying to rest the pastures and make sure we're doing the best we can for the grass. So if you go down to the farm now, you'll see the animals in these very small areas. Those are sacrificial pasture areas that we're keeping them on until the pasture can come back. And it's responding well with this recent rain. So we're hoping that, late summer, early fall, we're back to grazing. In year 3, we're going to continue improving the quality of our sheep flock. Often when you start with a flock of sheep, you're given other people's culls or animals they don't want. And so we're really trying to breed a robust, healthy group of sheep. And we have some really nice ewe lambs this year. This year, we will actually breed in the fall the very first born on Peterson Farm lamb. So that's really exciting. She's a beautiful Katahdin ewe. Like I said, we're going to replace the asphalt roof on the main barn. That's to get rid of the fiberglass skylight that is in there that leaks. We're really going to try to focus on pasture and soil quality this next year. And so we actually have UMass coming out to do about $500 worth of testing on the soil at the farm so that we can understand how we can manage the soil better to improve pasture quality. Again, continuing invasive control, with your guys' approval, improving the pasture at the west end of the property would be fantastic. And at the very least, getting rid of the goat barn and beginning on plans as to what we can do with that pad and structure going forward. Quick and simple. So any questions from anybody?
Thank you, Diana. If you would stop sharing your screen. Simon, I'm sorry, do you have something you would like to add?
No, I'm just here for questions. No.
Okay. Anybody have anything they want to talk about?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that this is Jen. Diana and Simon have done a wonderful job at the farm, rehabbing the barns. The invasive removal is just going to be an ongoing issue at the farm, but they've done an amazing job over there, and Mark has been a great liaison between the farm and myself to kind of keep everything, to keep me informed of what's going on down there. So it's a great operation. And if anybody hasn't been down there, they should go and visit.
Yeah, it looks
Nice
fantastic.
presentation, Diana. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
All right. Thank you, Diana and Simon.
Thank you, everyone.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
I love sheep farm presentations because they always make you feel good. The nice start to a meeting. And it's great. Those things look great. I'll have to come up and visit
Yeah, definitely come visit.
soon. Yeah.
Maybe you could sponsor one, help them pay for the hay.
Well, sure. That's a good idea.
All right, moving on. Vote minutes, August
Thank you,
12th,
guys.
20. Anybody?
I have some comments on the minutes.
Right.
There's some it's on page 9. When we were talking about the Surf Drive property. And one is I think Maury, there's a word here in a couple of Maury's comments. The first, well, so it's Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Gurney, and then Ms. Harlow Hawks from the top. Since 2009, there has been, and I think the word she means is erosion. There has been erosion in that area. And then down towards the bottom, that word has to be changed again. And then also, yeah, and then Mr. Humphrey says long-term erosion will take and the word that I thought was erosion appears again. So I'm not sure what he said there. And then the final thing is, what I said was I would put my CV, curriculum vitae, in the record, not CD. I don't have a CD out, but I do have a CV. Do you get those, Susan?
I
Yes,
think
I
the word
did. Thanks.
equation is
Thanks,
supposed to say,
Betsy.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank
What
you.
Mr. Chairman, I have one correction also.
okay,
Yeah, same page, Susan, and it's Mr. Robbins. The structure will be under the dune. And I said the composting tank would be under the structure, not the incinerating toilet.
you guys submit those into Jen so she can get them to Susan.
I also have a comment.
Okay.
And I believe, Susan, that you're asking me to say what was missing on page 12. It has parenthetically audio problem. And then the sentence, ask what she said, referring to me, I think. Is that right, Susan?
Most likely.
Okay. So I'll submit this to Jen in writing because it's a couple of sentences. But if the seller posts the bond, there will be no incentive for the buyer to comply with the 3-year monitoring requirement, excuse me. I recommend,
Partial compliance.
yeah, I recommend a partial compliance upon proper installation of the mitigation plants and COC after 3 years of successful growth. I'll send it to you.
Please. All right, anything else? All right,
So then I'll make a motion to accept as discussed.
Heard second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as, if you will, corrected.
1 second, Mr. Chairman. Betsy, Russell, Pat, if you have your corrections, Russell, if you can just drop that off at the office tomorrow, or Pat and Betsy, if you have a scanner, scan your corrections and send them to me. If not, if you want to just drop them off out back, I'll get them. I can take them, scan them, and send them to Susan.
I can send you a red line document. You know, you send a.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jen, Jen, can I say something, Mr. Chairman? If they
Please.
just
Absolutely.
email them to me, it's a lot easier.
Okay. Email
How's
your
that?
to Susan.
You.
So please email the corrections directly to Susan. She'll change the record. So we have a motion and a second to accept as corrected. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rudy, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
and Steve.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are accepted as corrected. Thank you. Next up is a request for a continuance under notice of intent. Gregory C. Marcotte and the White Sands Association Trust, 59 Davis Neck Road, and the end of Davis Neck Road, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to maintain and repair approximately 139 linear feet of stone riprap, to remove the existing granite stairs and landing, and to construct a set of timber stairs. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant, because part of this project is on town property, the town council is requiring the Board of Selectmen to authorize Julian to sign the notice of intent. That can't be done until their September 21st hearing. So the applicant is requesting a continuance until September 23rd.
So moved, Gladfelter.
Bird, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until September 21st.
Third,
Right.
Mr. Chairman, third.
I'm sorry.
The
Thank
Board
you.
of Selectmen meet the 21st.
Gotcha.
Sorry if I was not clear.
Stand corrected. All right. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rudy, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve? Aye. All right, it is unanimous. This hearing is continued. Next up, request for determination of applicability. First one, Edward A. Rocos, 257 Minot Road, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct and maintain a garage addition, to install a dry well, and to reconfigure the driveway.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, first to the board, my apologies that you don't have the staff reports for the RDA. Alyssa was sending everything out for Kevin and was not aware that the board received the RDA. So some of the staff comments were on this one. This is the 257 Minot. The RDA is to construct and maintain a garage addition to install a drywall. The applicant has proposed to reconfigure the existing driveway. The project is located in flood zone only. No mitigation is required, and all work is located more than 100 feet away from all other resource areas. Because of those comments, the staff is recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
Bird, so moved.
Thank you.
Patton, second.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rudy, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
All right, it is unanimous. Thank you. Next up, Kevin Hasenfuss, 45 Robinson Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to install a 16 by 26 in-ground pool with a 4-foot aluminum fence surrounding it. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff comments were obviously the RDA's to install an in-ground pool with aluminum fence. Part of the pool is located within the flood zone AE 13, and no other resource areas are located within 100 feet of the project. Therefore, the staff is recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
Bird, so moved. Walsh, second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Ernie, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you. Next up, Christina O'Connor, 37 Fells Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to vista prune according to FWR 10.18, 10B. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff comments are obviously the RDAs for Vista Prune. The applicant is working with Hamilton Tree. The property has received several Vista pruning permits in the past. The view corridor to the south is to be maintained, and the application is also for the removal of a large dead branch hanging from a large oak closest to the home. Therefore, the staff is recommending a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw, with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
Bird, so moved. Walsh, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Ernie, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you. Next up, James and Cynthia Duffy, 45 Point Road, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to upgrade the subsurface sewage disposal system to a Title V septic system. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff comments are as follows. All work is to occur on the landward side of the dwelling. One tree is proposed to be removed and replaced. Limited work will be established prior to work commencing, and there is no increase in design flow. It will stay a 5-bedroom septic system. Therefore, the staff's recommendations are a -2 under the state, -3 under the bylaw, with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
Bird, so moved. Walsh, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Ernie, aye.
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you. Next up are requests for hearing under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you have to say
All
the
right.
item.
First up is Dan O'Connor, Wild Harbor Yacht Club, Inc., 386 Wild Harbor Road, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to reconstruct an existing boat ramp.
Mr. Chairman, I was trying to say I had just promoted Mr. Borselli up as a panelist to present the project
Excellent.
for the applicant. Mike, is there anyone else that is going to be speaking on this, or just you?
Just me.
Okay, excellent.
Michael, you're up,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Permission to share my screen.
please.
Hopefully you're seeing my drawing.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Thank you. I always have a little fear that that's not going to work. For the record, Michael Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant, Wild Harbor Yacht Club. The Yacht Club has applied to repair through reconstruction of the existing paved and gravel boat ramp at their property referenced in the application. Some of you may remember this property. There were a couple of applications for other activities on this land. This property is located on Wild Harbor, nearby to the town docks. It's a private sailing club that teaches sailing, and there's several small sailboats that the kids use to go out into Buzzards Bay and practice sailing. The property has these wetland resources: land under the ocean, land containing shellfish. There's a salt marsh located in this location. There's a coastal bank that we've delineated adjacent to the boat ramp, and the A and B zone are shown from the coastal bank. We've shown the 100-foot no disturbance zone from the salt marsh. Also on the property is a gravel parking area, an existing building where the classes and staff occupy. There's several boat racks that store the small sailboats, and there's several sailboats on the property. So they also own several moorings that are out in Wild Harbor. So the boat ramp has been in existence for decades. We have been unable to find a Chapter 91 license. So we intend, if this is approved, to go to first the Board of Selectmen, and then if we receive approval from the Board of Selectmen and in order of conditions, we'd apply for a Chapter 91 license. So the way that the school operates is these small sailboats are put on hand trucks, and they're rolled into the water by this ramp. It's the most efficient and really the only way to gain access to the water with the sailboats. And through the years, this boat ramp has deteriorated. It was bituminous concrete. It still is in several places. But it's been patched with crushed stone through the years. And in the recent past, staff basically said, no more patching. You need to come in and get permission to apply for permission to rebuild or resurface the actual footprint of the boat ramp. If you've been to the site, you would have observed on the borders of the boat ramp. I'm going to go to this blow up. On the borders of the boat ramp is a granite edging that is still in very good shape, and it defines the footprint of the boat ramp, and it provides sort of a barrier for launching. It limits you to only the boat ramp area. So the plan is to rebuild this boat ramp, but use concrete, reinforced concrete instead of bituminous concrete or crushed stone. I think you're familiar with that methodology on some of the boat ramps that have recently been either built, such as the Child's River boat ramp, or others that were repaired. The contractor in this case is intended to be Dave Fucillo. We've met with Dave on site with Wild Harbor Yacht Club staff on a couple of occasions, talked about the methodology, got his direction. We most recently met with Conservation Commission staff, Kevin and Alyssa, on site to go over the same thing. Dave was present at that meeting, as well as Wild Harbor Yacht Club staff. So the idea, or the method, I should say, to replace this bituminous concrete and gravel ramp is to first install along the perimeter, and again, I'll go to this blow up, a temporary sheet piling boundary. We will use the vinyl sheet piling that you've seen used on low profile retaining walls on various projects. So the vinyl sheet piling would be driven just outside of the granite curbing. It would be installed along the edge of the existing bituminous concrete ramp. It would then be installed on the other side. This would allow all activities to be isolated to within that vinyl sheet piling perimeter. work would be performed working with the tides as best as possible. So, focusing on times of outgoing lower than mid tide to low tide to incoming tide to mid tide, so that there's minimal potential issues with tide. These vinyl sheet piling, basically cofferdams, are waterproof, so there may be very minor leakage, but highly unlikely. So after the sheet piling is driven, the seawater that may be contained in there when it's first installed would be pumped out, dewatered into Wild Harbor. It's the same water that's in the harbor to begin with. That would provide dry conditions for the work to be done. The bituminous concrete would be dug out by an excavator working from the upland side and working backwards up the ramp. The base would be prepped and compacted. Reinforcing steel and a form will be installed along the edge of the granite curbing that is already there and along the edge of the vinyl sheet piling on the end. The reinforcing steel would be installed, and the concrete would be pumped from the upland within the form that is also surrounded by the vinyl sheet piling. So everything will be encapsulated in there's no potential for any contamination by concrete into the Wild Harbor proper area. As a further fail-safe, we're proposing a floating boom be out there just as a further protection to any possible issues with concrete installation during, the time that this is being rebuilt. So as the concrete is poured into the forms, it's shaped and smooth, and you basically, it's like painting your way out of a room. You work your way up to the point where I've shown on this detail the word saw cut. That's where the existing bituminous concrete would be saw cut. So there's a smooth edge for the reinforced concrete to butt up against the pavement. There would be a rough surface, skid resistant surface on this, so that the kids, when they're the staff, when they're hand pulling the sailboats down, don't slip and fall. It won't be grooved like you may see where a boat ramp is used for the vehicles with larger boats on trailers, because it's not that type of ramp. In fact, the ramp is very flat. It's virtually impossible to back a trailer and a boat down without submerging the vehicle that's pulling the boat and get it to float off the trailer. So it's not intended for that use. It's intended for the school. And the school has been in existence for a very long time, and it's become unsafe to use the boat ramp, and it's become environmentally impractical and not cost effective to try to just keep patching it. So that's the main activity we're proposing. There's one secondary activity that we thought we would apply for at the same time. And I'm making reference to, there's an existing catch basin and drain that was evidently installed many, many years ago. This pipe is made out of corrugated metal. The Wild Harbor Yacht Club has been in touch with the town DPW on a few occasions because they installed it way back when. It's certainly been decades again that's been in place. So this pipe is jagged. It's a safety issue, and there's one section that we're proposing to remove. It's actually a clay pipe that's jagged it's broken like pottery on the top, and it has sharp edges, and it's submerged, and you can't really see it, and the kids have a tendency to be walking around here. So we're hoping that we can pull out the broken section of clay pipe and retrofit it with a piece of plastic pipe, which is the material that's used now for drainage pipe. That would all be done by hand, no excavation or anything like that. I think that sums up what we're proposing to do. I think we satisfied staff at the on-site meeting. We've identified a professional contractor that will do the work. So I'm hopeful you can issue a favorable order of conditions, and so we can proceed, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mike. Jen, do you want to begin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. No, I don't have any questions. I think I'd like to see, I like the cofferdam, Mike, thank you. I think that's the best way to install, especially if you're doing the poured concrete. And my only question was how you were gonna dewater if you needed to. You do have a Division of Marine Fisheries letter that recommends that the cofferdam and work be done at low tide, so that will be a condition for that
Yes.
recommendation from CMF.
Sure.
Okay, and that's it.
All right. I'll open up for staff comments. Betsy? Questions or comments?
Yeah, so my only question, Mike, is how long will this take?
Dave Fucillo says that the overall project will be 3 to 5 days, working with the tides. There'll be phases, they do the cofferdam first, of course, and then there'd be the removal of the ramp material that's there now, and then, another day of forming and steel work, and then the pouring of the concrete would be 1 day. So it's like, depending on the tides, working with the tides, they'll try to plan it for a week when the tides are favorable, but it should be a 3 to 5 day overall process.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I was particularly interested in how long the poured concrete part would be.
What they can do, just to further describe that, they can do a section and then put an expansion joint and end for the day, and then add another section after that as needed, working with the tides, if it becomes necessary. But when that cofferdam's installed, the way those sections are driven together, each seam is very tight, and once it's dewatered, it should be dry inside, so it shouldn't really be an issue.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Courtney?
The sheet piling will remain, or will that be taken out after the forms are stripped?
I didn't mention that. Good point. That's the last thing that'll occur when everything's done and cured and everything is stabilized. The sheet piling will be removed.
And you're going to put a base down before you pour. What's to prevent that base from getting undermined, or is it the way or if you got a haunch slab?
I don't have that detail. I apologize for that. The granite on the edging goes, the existing granite on the edges goes, it's probably 2 foot thick pieces of granite. So it's well below the bottom of the proposed slab. The only place we might need to provide a deeper form would be on the seaward end.
Right.
Yeah.
And the overall dimensions of that are?
I don't have a plan of scale in front of me. I'll have on my screen. The width is approximately 16 feet, and the overall length is about 45 to 50 feet.
Okay, and the slab is how thick?
The slab, there's a detail up the top, is actually 10 inches.
10 inches. Yeah. They should be able to pour that all in one day.
That's the goal.
Okay, no other questions. It's been well thought out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin,
No questions.
Mark,
I have no questions.
Pat,
No questions.
Peter?
Some general questions here. With the curtain, we don't need a time of year restriction. Is that correct?
Division of Marine Fisheries did not put a time or year restriction on this
Right.
project, Peter.
Thank you, Jen. And the clay pipe, what kind of drainage? Is that from a rooftop or a field or what?
It is to drain Grove Street and the surrounding roadway. There's a catch basin right here. And this is the low point. And then there's a pipe that exits that existing catch basin.
So it's from the street and under the supervision of the town?
Yes, the administration for the school has reached out to the DPW to talk about it a few times, but without having any permission, they were not really wanting to talk about it until we had an order of conditions.
Jen, what kind of licenses is required for a boat ramp,
Chapter 91 will be required.
similar to a dock?
Yes, yes.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you. Russ,
I'm all set, thank you.
Steve,
I was just curious about the curing process of the concrete. To expose my ignorance, it says 28-day concrete.
Well, Mr. Bird will correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure. So it cures to full strength after 28 days is the general term. 28-day full, concrete takes some time to cure, and to realize full strength is 28 days. That being said, that doesn't mean you can't, walk up and down it, use the boat trailers up and down it, but it's full strength after 28 days. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, but do you have to maintain the cofferdams while it's curing, or no?
No, once it sets up, which would be overnight, but we probably, you can tell it'll still be green, but it'll be set up to sufficient strength that you can remove the cofferdam. That may be a day or two after it's poured to be safe. But this is all going to be done at a time when the school is not active.
Thank you.
Jen, do we have any public chat function comments?
Sorry, I was on mute. No.
Thank you.
Make a motion to close the hearing, take it under advisement.
Bird, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. If there's no further comments, I'm going to call for the vote. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Ernie, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Aye.
It is unanimous. The hearing is closed. Thank you, Mr. Borselli.
Thank you. I'll see you a little later in the evening.
Look forward to it. All right. Next up is Gregory Marcotte. That has been continued until 9/23. Therefore, next up is Philip H. Warren and Susan Warren, Warren Family Irrevocable Trust, 132 Sitters Pond Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct and maintain a 4x8 fixed timber pier with a 4x16 ramp, 8x12 float, and pipe piles into Sitters Pond, and to install dug-in stone steps and lighting for the existing path and proposed pier.
Thomas or Adriana, will you please place Mr. Barcelli back in the attendee list? And Mr. Chairman, I promoted Tim Santos up to panelist.
Mike,
Adriana
you
and
want to
Thomas,
continue?
the only option I have is to remove Mr. Barcelli, and I'm afraid that'll remove him from the entire meeting. Thank you. And Jamie, Tim is with us.
Is Tim there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Mr. Santos, whenever you're ready.
All right, good evening. For the record, Tim Santos from Holmes and McGrath, representing the applicant, and I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
All righty. Again, for the record, Tim Santos from Holmes and McGrath, representing the applicant. Property is located at 132 Sitters Pond. The resource area is on and within 100 feet of the property, Sitters Pond itself, an inland bank associated with Sitters Pond, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and a top of a coastal bank associated with the bank along the pond. Some of you might be familiar with this property. It was before you, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, at which time the Warrens obtained an order of conditions to do some renovations to their home, additions in the back, as well as some mitigation plantings, I believe, in these areas here. And then there was a coastal bank restoration project as well. Back in, I think all that work finished up back in 2019, and a certificate of compliance was received this, I believe, this late spring, early summer. This project actually was filed back in 2019. And at that time, we were dealing with a few issues on the order of compliance, so we withdrew it. They have now received that that certificate of compliance, sorry. And we're back before you tonight proposing, oh man, sorry. We're proposing to install a fixed pier, ramp, and float section. We're also proposing to install some stone steps, as you can see, that go down the grass bank and a handrail. I'm going to go over to page 2. Page 2 on the plans we filed shows a profile section that goes down the grass slope. And this is where you can see the stone steps that we're proposing to install within that slope to make it a little easier transition to get down it. And then we have a fixed section, and then off of that fixed section of the pier, there'll be a ramp and float. This project meets all your performance standards, and we are hoping to obtain permission to install this pier within relatively soon, so they can use it for the next boating season. Staff did have a few minor comments. We've addressed that with staff, and if you have any questions or concerns, I'd be more than happy to address them.
Tim?
And I'm going to try to unshare. Hold on a second. There you go. Sorry.
Thank you. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Tim has addressed any of our comments, so we don't have any additional comments beyond the staff report at this time. All our questions were addressed, and we have no other comments.
All right. Then I'm going to start with commission comments. I'm going to start with Pat.
What's the water depth at the float?
I'm going to share my screen again just so I can show you. At the end of the float, 4.6 is the elevation at the end. So we have the 3 foot that's required.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
All right. Peter?
No questions.
Russ?
No questions. I'm good with it.
Steve?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Betsy?
I just have a comment. It's nice to go back to a site and actually see a restoration of a buffer area. And this one's going well. And it's also nice to see all those horrible strangling vines taken off the oak trees, and the oak trees sort of bouncing back and looking in good health. But I have no questions on the project.
All right. Courtney?
No questions.
Okay. Kevin?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mark?
Yeah, in the write-up, it commented on either jetting or screwing the poles in. I sort of thought jetting was kind of a destructive way of putting poles in. I would think we'd avoid that completely and use the screw-in type poles.
Yeah, duly noted.
Thank you. That's all.
All right. Jen, are there any public comments?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So I know they have kayaks because they're in their yard. Is this pond restricted to, or does not allow motors? I'm just curious. And if nobody knows the answer, that's okay. I can find it out another time.
I don't know that answer. I know they plan on using it for kayaks and small sailboat, sunfish type things. So that's what they plan on using it for.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Betsy, if you give me 1 minute, I can tell you. I just have to go to the town code, which means I actually have to find the town code. Hang on 1 second. All motorboats with internal combustion engines and motorboats with electric motors in excess of 5 horsepower are prohibited on the following ponds under the town code, and Sitter's Pond is one of them.
Okay, thanks, Jen.
Not a problem.
So can I make a motion, Jamie?
Please.
Make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close this hearing. If there's no more comments, I'm going to call for the vote. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Bird, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
Aye.
It is unanimous. The hearing is closed. Thank you, Mr. Santos.
Thank you for your time. Have a great weekend. It was good to see everybody. I haven't seen you in a while.
Have a
Thank
great
you, Tim.
weekend, Tim.
You're welcome any Wednesday night at 7 o'clock.
Thank you.
Night, Tim.
Good night.
All right. Next up are continued hearings under notice of intent. First on the agenda is Brian P. Halligan, 110 Oyster Pond Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to conduct invasive plant species management and native plant restoration. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am promoting Jeff Ryther as a panelist and okay, Mr. Chairman, Wilkinson Ecological is here, as is BSS Design.
Hello, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. For the record, Katrine Higgins from Wilkinson Ecological Design. And like Jen just said, Jeff Reither is also here from BSS Design to represent the project. So I'll just take you through what we're proposing. Really, when you look at our plan, there's two distinct parts. Oh, sorry, and I haven't shown you the plan yet. Let me just pull that up, share screen. Okay. Can you see the plan?
Yes.
Okay, great. So when you look at our plan, there's two distinct parts. First, there's the majority of our work area is 18,000 square feet, and it's Phragmites removal. It's all within the edge of the BVW in this area here. And then the second part of our project is in the upland. It is about 1,800 square feet of the property. It's along this area here along Oyster Pond Road, and then this area of 2,500 square feet of, my math is wrong there. So it's about 300 square feet over on this side, and then 2,500 square feet of project area here, where we're proposing general invasive removal. And I'll get into that in a second, but first I thought we'd focus on the Phragmites area, which is the majority of what we're proposing tonight. And we provided a protocol that detailed how we propose to remove the Phragmites. And based on the letter that we just received recently from the Division of Marine Fisheries, we would like to adjust the timing of our work to meet with their time of year restrictions. It will work well, and we're confident that it's fairly minor changes. It's just really when we're doing the work. So to meet their time of year restrictions, we would like to propose to mow after June 15th. Roughly between June 15th and July 1st, we would mow the area to cut the Phragmites down. And then in July and August, we would perform the cut and wipe application treatments to target the Phragmites. We are fine with not working after September 1st. So we would just kind of focus our work in July and August rather than continuing it into the fall. We're also happy to install the silk curtain barrier that they're suggesting. And really this, as our protocol details, we typically find that these areas of Phragmites removal don't require any planting because the native seed bank in the Phragmites areas are quite rich. And it's actually really interesting to see what will just grow fairly soon, fairly quickly, that next spring, or right after that, during the growing season, what emerges in these areas after the Phragmites is removed. So in this area, we're not proposing any additional planting. So then we get to the upland area, that second part that I was mentioning. And currently in these areas, they contain both native and non-native vegetation. There's an interesting mix there. On one hand, you have some really nice native species like arrowwood, black oak, blueberry, bayberry, huge bayberry, some of the biggest I've ever seen, really tall, and sweet pepperbush and elderberry growing in the wetter areas. And so those are all the really nice native vegetation. In addition, there's some cedar and some other trees, some sassafras. And then on the other hand, you have shrub honeysuckle and bittersweet that are making their way into these areas quite aggressively. So we would like to remove those invasive species. And we're proposing to replant the area as needed to ensure that there are woody species growing every 5 to 6 feet on center throughout that area. And we have that listed on a note here on our plan. And we've also provided a list of shrubs that would really do well: arrowwood, black chokeberry, rose, inkberry, serviceberry, sweet pepperbush. And we really liked the recommendation, the staff's recommendation, to meet in between the initial removal work and the replanting phase to determine the plant quantities. So we'd be really happy to do that if that still worked for you. So overall, this project proposes about 1/2 acre of ecological restoration along Oyster Pond, and it will improve native habitat available for wildlife. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Katrin.
Sure.
Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So you're going to mow after June 15th and apply the herbicides between July and August. So you're going to be sandwiched in between those 2 time of year restrictions.
Correct.
Okay, great. We believe we had any other. The kayak path. We did a question about that.
So what specifically? Were there specific questions?
Just, well, I mean, you're gonna remove all the phragmites, so that area is gonna be really mucky and everything else. How, are you going to sort of stabilize that at all? Or is it just gonna be walking through that kind of mucky area? Like, how is that gonna be done? That's all.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Right now, that area is full of the phragmites. We wouldn't be impacting any natives vegetation. There's a lot of high tide bush that's in that area or around in the whole project area. We haven't talked to the applicant about any details of. I think they were just interested in. There is somewhat of an access already there, and they just kind of wanted to put it on a plan. And I don't know that detail of exactly like what the pathway would be. We were just talking about kind of weed whacking it and nothing, and removing the frag, and by removing the frag there would be that path there. But we're not proposing any kind of material to be placed on top.
Okay, but is this substrate going to be really like firm there, or?
I would imagine
the surface.
You know, obviously when you get closer to the water, it's going to be harder to walk on. But it where you're coming from the edge of lawn in, I think it would be, before it got too wet, you know, I think you could walk on that.
Okay, well, if the board has any concerns, I'm sure we can condition something like before the path is, or after maybe the phragmites removal, you meet with staff and we kind of determine where this path is going to go. So no hide bush is removed or anything like that. So those like kind of conditions for the creation of the path, like no native shrub material is removed or anything like that. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I'm going to open up to staff comments and questions. Kevin, we're going to start with you.
No questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mark?
No questions.
Okay. Pat?
No questions.
Peter?
Just a comment. I think that's a tremendous project to get rid of so many phragmites from Falmouth.
It's ambitious. Russ?
No question.
Steve?
Thank you. I just have a comment. I saw this as very ambitious, as Peter had said, and I actually enjoyed reading the protocols. So thank you for providing them. They gave me great clarity on how you go about doing this and how long it takes to achieve this goal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Betsy?
No comments. It'll be a nice project. It'll be interesting to watch it progress.
I agree.
Courtney?
Who's doing the application of the herbicide?
It would be our Wilkinson's environmental technicians completing.
Okay, so you're not bringing in an outside firm. Okay. They're licensed and all of that.
Fully licensed.
No questions. Good project.
Thank you.
All right. Jen, do we have any public comments?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Third, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close this hearing. If there's no further comments, I'm going to go with the vote. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Third, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Aye.
It is unanimous. This hearing is closed. Thank you, Katrin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up,
There's Jeff.
Elizabeth Colt Simmons Family Trust, 24 Millfield Street, Woods Hole, Mass. For permission to construct 2 8x8 additions to the existing porch, to reconstruct the existing porch and its steps, to install mitigation plantings, to install 2 dry wells, to remove and replace existing walkways, and to undertake minor landscaping activities, I believe that's supposed to say, including invasive plant management. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I lost my agenda real quick. I have promoted Dave Martin up as a panelist to present his project.
Thank you, Jen. Could we also promote the property owner, Beth Colt, I believe?
Yes, absolutely.
Betsy, can we confirm quorum, please?
It's, well, it's everyone, but you have to appoint somebody up.
Mark has been pointing out.
Okay.
Okay, David, I'm sorry. You're up whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I think we covered most of the projects. I'll make my first attempt at sharing the plan. Can everyone see that all right?
Not yet.
Try once more. Share screen. Oh my, didn't set this up right. Yes, we did. How about this? Share. Nope, my mistake. Sorry. Thought I'd be sharing as a PDF, but that's not working.
Okay, Dave, I've got it for you. Just give me a minute.
Thank you so much.
Not a
Darn
problem.
it, I thought I got new cable since I saw you guys last, and I had my PDF ready to go, but still haven't got it covered.
I'm pulling up the revised plan dated August 25th, correct?
Please.
Okay. Hang on one second, guys.
Dave, we'll have to have you come for a special lesson.
Maybe I should retire.
All right, this is giving me a problem now. It's not bouncing this over. All right, hang on. Okay, I've got it, guys. Sorry about that. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Am I looking, are you guys looking at a at my screen, at the plan?
Yes, we are.
Excellent. Okay, Dave, you're
Thank
up.
you, Jennifer.
Not a problem, sir.
Bottom right here, there was a request made by staff that was originally proposed as switchgrass. We've changed that out to reflect the same plant choices as shown otherwise for the restoration area up in here. I think why the reason we requested the continuance was the original steps as proposed to replace the steps that are there, extended further out due to building code standards, and staff and the commission members raised some concerns about structure coming closer to the resource area. We went back and worked with the architect And you can see the steps are now cut into the porch. I believe other than that, we covered most of the project. I'd be happy to walk through it all again or simply answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Mr.
Jim,
Chairman,
you
do you
want-
want me to stop sharing the screen?
I think so, yeah. Thanks.
No problem. Staff doesn't have any more concerns. Our concern was moving closer to the resource area, and that was addressed, as was kind of beefing up the area of switchgrass, so.
Excellent. All right. I'm going to open up for staff comments, excuse me. We're going to start with Russ.
I'm good. They did what we asked. I'm good with this.
It's always good. Steve?
Exactly.
Betsy?
Looks good.
Courtney?
Looks good.
Kevin?
No complaints.
Okay. Mark?
I'm okay with it. Looks good.
All right. Pat?
I agree with everybody.
Peter?
Looks good.
All right, David, you passed the litmus test. Thank you for working with staff and addressing the plants and the steps.
Always my pleasure.
Bird moves.
Thank you, David.
Take it under advisement.
Robin,
Okay.
I think that.
Russ, was that a second?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to clarify. All right. Do we have any public comments?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Just appreciate your willingness to look at it again. Thank you so much.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. There are no more comments. I'm going to call for the vote. Betsy?
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Ernie, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
And aye.
It is unanimous. The hearing is closed. Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you, and you all have a good
Thank
night.
you.
All right, next up is Dana Brown, 17 White Pine Lane, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise, RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling and to construct a new single-family dwelling and new Title V septic system. And Betsy, can we clarify the quorum?
We haven't opened this yet.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Matt Creighton of the BSC Group to present the project to the board. Hi, Matt.
Hi guys, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
Excellent. All right, hopefully you can see my PDF.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So for the record, my name is Matthew Creighton with the BSC Group, representing Miss Dana Brown for the proposed raise and replace of an existing single-family dwelling. She recently purchased this house, so it's kind of new to her, but she's tearing it down. It's not in the greatest of shape, and is looking to rebuild here. She's looking for kind of a modest increase in size. The existing house in the 0 to 50 is 380 square feet. She's proposing 325, so we'll be reducing that a little bit. With the 50 to 100, the existing is 828 square feet. We're proposing 1,540 square feet. And then the current house kind of just has like a lawn dirt area that they drive up into pretty close to the existing house in order to keep cars further away from the wetland and give them more of a defined driveway, if you will. We're proposing 144 square foot, just a stone parking area where they can put 2 cars side by side there, keeping it closer to White Pine Lane. So overall, within the 0 to 50, we have a reduction of 55 square feet and an increase in the 50 to 100 of 790 square feet. Required mitigation is 1,470 square feet, which is what we've proposed out back. We're looking at removing the existing shed that's back there, and we're going to be mitigating that area. We'll also be removing the existing septic that's back here up against the wetland, which is right along this edge here. We'll get rid of the pump fill and abandoning the existing cesspools. We're putting them as far up to close to the street as we can. This is a 100-foot buffer here, so it does just kind of scratch at the edge of it there, but we can't really get it any further out. We are also proposing as a betterment to include 2 dry wells on both sides of the house to infiltrate roof runoff. The mitigation area, like I mentioned, 1,470 square feet proposed. I did have a carryover that I noticed in the report of the big leaf hydrangea, which is not a native. I would like to switch that out for red osier dogwood. It's my mistake. It's just a carryover from another project that I had, and when I got the report, I realized that. So I apologize. I also noted in the report that we do have quite a bit of herbaceous plants that are interplanted around our woody vegetation there. I like to provide a pretty good assortment of native plants, herbaceous layer that does go around that woody layer to provide kind of an enhanced habitat, if you will. I find that when we plant just shrubs and we space them out, you get 3 or 4 years before they actually get big enough and start to fill in those areas. And this just kind of fills it in and enhances, pollinator diversity, and the birds and small mammals will help utilize it. They're not in the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension because they don't provide grasses and herbaceous layer, but they are all native, the varieties that have been proposed. With that, I'll take questions. I don't think I have anything else too exciting.
Yeah, all right. Thank you.
Got it. Let me stop sharing.
Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As you can see from the staff report that Matt has, the staff's biggest concern and comment with this project is the species indicated for mitigation. This board, routinely requires more woody shrubs for mitigation. And I would say a majority, or about 80% of these shrubs, are herbaceous or perennials. So the staff did have some concerns with that. I know that some of the shrubs that we had originally proposed as substitution were met with some resistance. I believe, Matt, you had stated in an email because they were mostly fac wet species and you didn't think they would do well, but cinnamon fern and cardinal flower are also fac wet species. So
I have cardinal. I've got cardinal flower in my backyard, and I'm not anywhere near water, and it grows quite well.
I have dentatum in my backyard, and I'm not anywhere.
I mentioned that would work. I was more concerned with the spice bush, which has to be right in the wetland. I mean, part of our mitigation area is 8 and 9 feet above the water table, so it's just way too dry and sunny for it.
Okay. Well,
I think the last comment you had was a red chokeberry as well, which would work fine there. And then, like I said, I swapped out the red osier dogwood with the hydrangea because that would give us woody species in each of those 3 areas. And I know that you have the concern about the herbaceous, but as these plants get larger, this herbaceous just fills those areas in a little bit better on the lower areas. And as these plants get larger, we do have quite a good number of woody species going in as well. But we can certainly add or swap some of the things out. That's basically why I'm here, just to make sure we don't just keep going in circles without having the commission be able to weigh in on it. So.
Oh, I'm sure they will. Just for the commission's thing, there are 19 shrubs that are the woody shrubs that you like to see. 19 for that entire mitigation area. Am I right with that, Matt? You have the dogwood at 3, the summer sweet and the witch hazel in your area, so that's
19.
16. Yep, and then the
Yep.
witch hazel for that. So again, the staff's comments are based on past practices and requirements of the commission. So we've been trying to stress that the board will probably require more woody vegetation. Other than that, we worked with the applicant's representative on relocating the shed to give them a little bit more mitigation area because the original plan didn't have enough. So it's nice to see that, I know you have some concerns with the location map, but it's nice to see that you put it under that deck. I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
give them some sort of storage on that property.
Yeah, exactly. And the owner was fine with removing it. She
Yeah.
had no problem with that. So
Yes.
it worked out. It gave us
mean-
what we needed.
It definitely is an overgrown property,
Yeah.
and a property that does need some attention.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue that we have out there is that a lot of the areas that probably were lawn 5 or 6 years ago, they just haven't been maintained or all just growing back. So it just reduces that area of mitigation that we can provide.
Other than that, Mr. Chairman, we don't have any comments. It was just the mitigation species.
Okay, wasn't this continued for that reason?
We had a continuation to because we didn't have the square footage of mitigation that we needed. That was one of them, and then the homeowner had a revised. We revised the house location, and she reshaped it a little bit to reduce some of the impact within the 50. So we had a couple of continuations from that. The comments about the mitigation plantings that Jen and I were discussing. Everything was kind of churning, and I wanted to get it in front of you guys to get your feedback basically, and kind of explain where we are with everything. And then that way, if we do have any other changes we need to make, we can make them at this time, and then have kind of a final polished plan for you guys.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to start with staff. I'm sorry, commission comments. Courtney.
No comments.
Kevin.
I'm just wondering how much of a hurdle it is between our staff and the applicant's engineer. Is this something that you can work out, or are you want us to make a decision tonight? And tell you.
I'm just letting you know what your practice, Kevin, what your
Yes, our normal
woody shrubs.
inclination would be.
Yeah.
To help answer that question, I guess from our standpoint, is just I would rather know how many more woody shrubs you wanted. I don't think the herbaceous layer really hurts anything as far as being able to fill in the areas. And then we can certainly work with Jen. I've got a list of natives here that I can read off to you that if everybody's happy with, we can filter in a few of those. But like I said, the chokeberry is fine. I know that was one of them. Shadbush, the red ocean dogwood that we propose. I know like Rose Bay rhododendron would probably work in the shadier areas. Carolina rose or Virginia rose. I mean, there's plenty that we can fill in and work with staff on that. I just kind of wanted to get a number, I guess, more than anything. Do we want 5 more or 10 more? That way I can go back to the applicant there and let her know, how we're going to space that out and everything.
Okay, but just to say, for clarification, Kevin, if we're going to require a revised plan, then we would not close the hearing.
Okay.
So just to give the board some sort of idea on numbers. So right now, and we have no problem, Matt, with planting herbaceous material in between the required mitigation. So if you plug 1,470 square feet into what's called a plant calculator, right? You guys usually require 3 feet on center, which is tight, but that's what your usual requirement is. If I do that and I put it into this little plot calculator and I calculate it on a rectangular grid, it would be 163 plants. Now spacing those same plants 60 inches, which is 5 feet apart, you would be at 58 plants, woody shrubs. Right now, the applicant is proposing 19, just to give you some perspective.
Okay. Kevin, anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mark,
I have nothing. Thank you.
Pat,
No comments.
Peter,
No questions.
Russ,
No comments.
Steve,
I don't have any questions.
Betsy.
I'd like 58 woody shrubs and I'd like a tree, because this is over 1,000 feet of mitigation plantings. This is what we require as buffers for all the other projects.
Okay.
And I
Jen,
love the herbaceous plants. I love especially cardinal flower.
Beautiful. I had my hummingbird at it. I got a beautiful picture this summer of a hummingbird at my cardinal flower up front. I love it.
Jen, setbacks we're good on? We're greater than the existing, it looks like.
Yes, and we're reduced within the 50.
Yeah, okay. All right. So Jen, what are you thinking? If they can work with you on the amount of plants or the centering, or is that something you want us to work on?
Well, it's up to the board. I mean, the
Right.
staff's gonna need some direction. I heard no comments, no comments. Does this mean the board likes the herbaceous? Do you want to see more woody shrubs? I mean, you usually require woody shrubs 3 feet on center. I mean, all I'm doing is plugging it into a website that's called number of plants calculator, and it just spits out a number. So, and basically, you know, some of these plants can get pretty big. So, you know, the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension does sometimes say 4 to 5 to 6 feet. So, you know, between 3 and 6 feet, you're looking at 58 to 163 shrubs. And that's on the grid pattern, which is on the lower one as opposed to a triangular pattern. Like I said, they offered 15. So if the board wants, as Betsy said, 58 shrubs and the rest be herbaceous, then the staff can work with BSC. I think the impasse that BSC and the staff has is they want to hear it from you and not the staff.
All right.
I'll second Betsy, including the tree.
I mean, that sounds like a decent solution. Would we want a revised plan for that, Jen?
Yes, absolutely, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so.
We need to continue this.
Yeah, but let's give them some direction.
Yes, please.
So I'm perfectly happy to have Jen and Matt agree on the species of
We can
plants.
do that.
Oh, yeah.
As long as they're woody species and not the herbaceous one, we absolutely can do that.
I have a question for Jen. The calculations were 58 shrub plants to 163. Where is the staff landing on that? We're talking 58, the low end, and did you say that?
Well, what I'm saying is that, like I said, we use this tool to kind of help us figure things out, and spacing that 3 feet on center, which this board usually requires for your mitigation, that was at 163 number for the square footage of mitigation area. If you increase that to a 5 feet on center, which some of these plants, the cooperative extension does say they should be placed a little further apart. I mean, we do tend to plant a really tight buffer. Then if you plug in that 60 inches at 5 feet, then we come out to a number of 58. So it really depends on where the board wants to go with that.
That would be with him leaving the proposed herbaceous, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if we
So-
include the tree in there, that's even more space as well. It's gonna get a lot larger and really shade a lot of this stuff out.
And
I
is
mean,
the-
a lot of the herbaceous isn't gonna survive if we get that density of larger woody shrubs. A lot of that herbaceous isn't gonna survive more than a couple of years. It's just gonna get shaded out.
Based on the 3-foot on center?
I mean, even at
No,
5
on the
feet on
tree.
center, with 5 feet on center and a full tree in the middle, because we'd have to plant the tree out towards the back. It would be too close to the house if we planted it too close. So we'd want to, I mean, we're not looking at that much of an area. We've got a pretty tight lot. So we'd try to push that out a little bit closer, like a red maple or something closer to the BBW area.
A red
But-
maple, a tupelo,
Yeah,
something that.
yes, something that's going to work well down in that
Having
area.
their feet wet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just to keep it away from the house a little bit. That's my only concern. Is something falling down, full grown.
Oh, yeah.
There are a number of trees back there, just to let the board know.
Yeah, it's pretty woody. I mean, we're cutting a couple of branches that are hanging, but we've got trees and stuff. The area is over. It hasn't been maintained in several years, so a lot of it's just overgrown anyway. But like I say, we're trying to filter in what we can with what we have for space. Unfortunately, it's just not a very big lot. It's not a very big house. We're not asking for much, but we still got to have the mitigation.
Trying to find a good picture for you guys.
All right, so it sounds like we're, and anybody can jump in, but it sounds like we're in a general agreement that the 5-foot on center would work in conjunction with herbaceous, and that we'd be okay with Matt and staff working together on the revised plan.
Just so you guys can see a picture. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
No,
I was trying to find one.
I figured I could open it quicker. I had it right there. So you can see the house is just really old and everything back there. You can see all the trees behind the deck in the back. Some of them are dead and dying, but provide perfect habitat. We're not take anything out. We do have a lot of vine obviously covering the area. Like I said, I think it's been 5 or 6 years since anybody's done anything down there. So we are looking to cut a couple of limbs just because they do hang over the house. This is the shed out back. I mean, we really don't have lawn. Like I said, it's all overgrown in that area, but we're trying to enhance what's out there.
Matt, well, I don't know if you'll be doing the planning, but whoever's working out there, if they could release all those trees from those vines as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, we probably would cut them right at the base, just so that the vines die out. Yeah. Yeah. Some of the trees are already dead. Some stuff is struggling back there. It's like I think it's been 5 or 6 years. I don't think anyone's lived at the house or been there, and it's just starting to get taken over.
Yeah, people don't realize how quickly those English ivy.
The ivy is just brutal.
Yeah.
I know. And you can see this is the driveway. They don't really have one. That's why we're proposing something further away. Just a couple of parking spots off the road there. But anyway, there you go. I mean, that's part of the reason why we're not like crazy with plants as well. It's not lawn. I mean, if it's like I said, we're really limited on what we can mitigate out there. It's pretty overgrown.
So we need a continuance date, Jen?
Would the 16th work for you, Matt? I mean, we're getting pretty busy on the 16th, but if you could, that would be for us to be able to get a revised plan into the board by the 9th.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I can do that.
Work for you?
Yeah. And I mean, I think the way it sounds is all you need is the revised plan for you guys, so it shouldn't take much time. Yeah.
So at the request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue this till September 19th?
16th.
September
I'm sorry.
16th.
Whoops, sorry.
Second.
Unless you want to be here on a Saturday afternoon, Betsy. The rest of us will be here on the 16th of September.
Well, if I could switch.
So are we clear on what we want in the revisions?
Matt, are you clear?
58 shrubs and a tree.
There you go.
That's it.
We'll
Thank you,
talk
guys.
about
I
the
just,
species.
oh yeah, that's fine. I'm sure we'll be fine with that.
Yeah, we'll be fine with that.
Okay. Are there any public comments, Jen?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to continue this till 9/16. Betsy will be there on the 19th. I'm going to go for the vote. Betsy?
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Ernie, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
Aye.
It is unanimous. This hearing is continued until 9/16. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you.
To Matt.
All right, next up, Bruno DeFazio, 41 Moonpenny Lane, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct a single-family dwelling with all associated clearing, grading, and landscaping. This was continued.
I'm promoting Mr. Borselli back up. There he is. Hi, Mike.
Hi, folks. Update, Bruins losing 2-0.
Oh,
No.
Yep,
oh,
What period?
still first period. So
There's
this
still-
time.
So basically, I think we continued this so Mike could put the trees on the plan, much like we had him do on the last vacant lot on Moonpenny, correct, Mike?
Yeah, there were three things. I'll share my screen and just go over them
Thank you.
very briefly. So three things. First one, yes, we showed this trees that were within 25 feet of the limit of work. So there was a record of those. We showed the improvement that we're required to provide, which is a row of native shrubs along the limit of work. In this case, Arrowwood by Burnham is specified. And we showed where we would put a path leading to the beach. So that has been added to the plan. I submitted the revised plans with a cover letter that outlined those revisions, and I think the commission was satisfied in all other aspects, and I'm here to answer questions.
Thank you, Mike. Jen?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mike, did you speak with your client about the possibility of a D-night system?
I did.
Okay.
In fact, I mentioned that in my letter.
I'm sorry if I missed that.
I'm sorry for not mentioning it, although it's always an awkward thing for me to say no to these things because I know that they're good, but my client isn't ready tonight to agree to that. He has done some research. He's pretty savvy. He's done some house construction in other towns in Massachusetts. He's concerned about the added costs, specifically the maintenance protocol that's required. So he's not saying he'll never do it, but as of right now, we can't commit to doing that.
Fair enough. It's always the thing is the maintenance, isn't it?
There's a fairly significant maintenance protocol, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, Steve?
Oh, the question I had was about the path and the trees, and it seems fine. Thank you.
All right, Betsy?
No questions. Thanks, Mike.
Courtney?
No questions.
Kevin?
no questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mark?
Looks good to me, thank you.
Pat?
No questions.
Peter?
Mike, thanks for agreeing and updating the drawings. No further questions.
Thank you.
Russ?
No questions.
All right, sounds good.
Make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. There are no more comments. I'm sorry. Jen, are there any public comments?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, without further ado, Betsy,
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rooney, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. This hearing is closed. Thank you again, Mr. Boselli.
Thank you.
All right, next up. Continued hearings under enforcement order. Andreas and Joan Spalaris, 78 Squibnocket Drive, East Falmouth, Mass. Violations of approved order of conditions / settlement agreement, DEP number 25-3466 and DEP 25-4277. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Arlene Wilson up to a panelist.
Do we have a quorum on this? Do we need a quorum on this?
Well, everybody can listen to it because we're not ready to vote yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm also promoting Brian Wall up.
Okay.
I just needed to check to see if he wanted to be promoted up to a panelist. I promoted Brian Wall as well. Hi, Arlene, how are you?
Aye.
So,
Wow.
Mr. Chairman, I think the board had continued this because the board wanted to see a plan with specifically Courtney with maybe a structural plan with the wall removed and a platform supported on pilings or posts. There was some hesitation on staff's end to allow the board to close the hearing. I just wanted to check with council on something. I have checked with council on the staff's concerns about, having an enforcement order and requiring a plan that shows this, this, and this without the board seeing it. Council has assured me that that is fine. So it's just kind of like I said, a hesitation on staff's part. We didn't want to lead the board in the wrong direction. So the board had asked applicants to provide a plan with the wall, with the removal of the wall. And I believe, Courtney, you wanted, and I have the minutes right in front of me, a platform, an engineered platform to show where the egress is on the side of the house. And that plan was supposed to be submitted before this hearing and has not been. So the staff would recommend at this point that the board go ahead, issue that enforcement hearing with a plan due by the end of September and showing the removal of the wall, the platform engineered, right, Courtney, the platform for the egress.
Yep. With the footings and the whole.
Yep, the footings and everything, the slope stabilized with vegetation as it was required in the order of conditions. The hay bale that is still out there, that the staff asked to be removed. Alyssa checked on her way home. The hay bale and the stakes are still out there. I'm not quite sure why that hasn't been removed yet. So I think the board can just go forward and vote that enforcement order and the staff can issue that.
Point of clarification.
Yes.
Jen, I was not a member of the commission when this hearing was open, so I will not be participating.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to issue an enforcement order as described by staff.
I'll second that motion. Gladfelter.
well, just to be clear, so that plan should be submitted by the end of September. And when would you like to work? You had originally said complete the project by the 15th, but we were anticipating October 15th, but we were anticipating a plan. That plan is going to take a while. So when would the board like to see the wall removed?
What does that mean as far as planting, Jen?
I mean, planting, you're not going to be able to plant much past the end of October. Just won't be able to. It's just not appropriate. So they could stabilize that slope with some jute matting that could stabilize that slope. You know, if they grade that slope and everything and stabilize it, you know, they could always plant at the spring. You could always require them to plant no later than, you know, April 15th or April 30th in the spring.
Yeah, so the plan should include that.
Yes.
Temporary
Jute matting.
stabilization.
Correct.
And then planting date certain in the spring.
Okay.
Is everybody clear on that?
I don't know if Arlene or Brian would like to speak, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Wall?
I would defer to Arlene, at least initially.
Mr. Chairman, I did want you to know that we have provided a structural engineering plan of the wall as built, which was one of the things that I believe was discussed the last time we were before the board, that there were questions about how it was built and whether it was structurally sound. And so that plan is in your record. We have also had some issues about, you may recall that we had submitted a request for an amended order of conditions with a revised plan. And then before that hearing would have come up, the governor changed the COVID emergency regulations so that for projects that were in violation of old orders, the stay on permit expiration no longer applied. So originally the board had not approved an extension for this because we all thought that the project order would have been automatically extended by the COVID order number 17 until the end of the COVID emergency plus 45 days. Order number 42 rescinded that for this permit, and so it actually expired in May. So there's no open order on this anymore. We have instead filed an NOI, which shows requests the maintenance of the wall, maintenance of the stone step at the entry, the change in the front walk, and provides some additional mitigation in response or return for that maintenance. I know this is particularly hard for the commission. This is not a site that you wanted developed in the first place. In fact, the board issued a denial originally, and you may feel as though you're kind of boxed into allowing development on this lot at all through court action. I'm sympathetic with that. I think a number of you know I have been on the other side of the table on commissions before, so I know how frustrating this kind of thing can be for you. But I would like you to remember that although they made changes without asking, and they never should have done that, the changes that they made actually resulted in less environmental impact. There's 186 square feet less hardscape than would have been in the plan that was allowed. We were showing on the revised landscape plan an extra 420 square feet of shrubby mitigation. That's not including the issue of the wildflowers that come up against the back of the house that Jen and I discussed today. But that's an additional 420 square feet of shrubs, where the reduction in the hardscape would actually allow for 370 square feet less mitigation. So I hope, because the hearing date is September 16th, I hope that you will look at that request with an open mind.
That's the notice of intent is September 16th, Jen?
Mr. Chairman, yes, they submitted the notice of intent today. The board does need to move on this enforcement order. So the staff's recommendation would be to issue the enforcement order if you feel it's appropriate, and then handle the notice of intent on the 16th. You should not be talking about that. We have it not advertised. It's not,
Right.
meeting. So, so I would request this board focus on before you, which is the enforcement order. And then if by chance this board comes to a different conclusion on, September 16th, then we can always readdress whatever action you take tonight.
Okay.
That's
Thank you.
easily cleaned up if the board decides something differently after hearing the whole notice of intent presentation. But before you right now is this enforcement order with the wall.
Okay. Does anybody have anything they want to add to this, commissioners? Okay, so we have a motion and a second to issue this enforcement order. I'm going to take
Which
the vote.
Well, it would be to submit the plan by September 30th with the removal of the wall and the platform on the posts and structurally designed by an engineer. Remove the wall and stabilize that by what date?
October 30th.
We can do that October 30th and have that whole slope stabilized. It can be stabilized with jute matting over the winter time and then plant no later than April 30th and stabilize that slope. Plantings. There are plenty of slopes that we've seen jute matted over the winter time, so it can be done.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so with a motion and a second, I'm going to go take the vote. Betsy,
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Ernie, aye.
Pat has abstained. Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve, Jen, just for clarification, I would not want public comment on enforcement order, correct?
I mean, you can, it's a hearing. You can take public comment, but we don't have any.
Okay.
Unless Brian wants to say something.
I don't have anything to add at this point.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Wall.
Okay, so
Public chat, Mr. Chairman.
it is unanimous. We have issued an enforcement order. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Arlene. We'll see you on the 16th. Good night, Brian.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Good night, Brian.
All right, next up, vote order
Good night,
conditions.
Arlene. Okay.
Order conditions, Wendy Hill and Susan Condon, 268 Surf Drive, Falmouth, Mass. And for the record, I am recused, Pat is recused, and Mark is officially the alternate for that hearing
So it'll
anyway.
be Courtney, Kevin, Betsy, Russ, Steve, Mark, wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I guess Peter can be voted up for this one too, right, Mr. Chairman? 7
Peter
of you.
Kent, yes.
Yeah. So Courtney, Kevin, Betsy, Russ, Steve, Peter, Mark. 7. So we all know what this is, the tight tank in Surf Drive. The board is aware of staff's concerns. Our opinion that this is an increase in design flow, and that we really, in staff's opinion, should not be putting structures in a dynamic barrier beach coastal dune system. And that's all staff has to say. Our staff reports stands.
Okay. I think for simplicity, I'm just going to go down the list. Betsy, for comments or anything you want to add.
Well, my comments are the same as the last time. I think all of us knowing that the Gulf Coast with a lot of barrier beaches is about to be hit by a Category 4 hurricane. And a lot of those areas are just going to be totally churned up, and a lot of times sand will come back in, but if you have lots of concrete boxes buried under the beaches and the dunes, they're going to be left behind and have to be dealt with.
All right, Courtney.
Actually, I'd like to update Betsy. They have upgraded that hurricane to Category 5.
Oh,
They're-
my God.
What?
Just now. And they expect waves that will go 30 to 40 miles inland that are close to 40 feet high. So that's how vulnerable that coast is. And it's not that they don't have an alternative. They have an alternative with composting toilet technology that works fine. And it's a change of use if you allow black water back in there. So I vehemently oppose that aspect of this.
Okay. Kevin.
I was afraid of that. I believe that overall, we're better served if they have a tight tank that is serviced, and the alternatives, although available, my own personal experience with them has not been satisfactory. So I would go with the tight tank.
All right. Again, this part isn't the vote. I just want to give everybody the opportunity to throw in anything, especially if for any kind of conditions. Mark?
I also believe a tight tank is the correct solution. I think considering our specific standards, it meets all our standards very well. We might have aesthetic reasons why we don't like it, or other reasons, but the specific standards we meet. That's all.
Okay, Peter?
I agree with Mark. I've read through the standards several times, and my opinion is the definition of change of use is a choice between the Webster's Dictionary and the Health Department's definition of change of use. And it's not clear sometimes which definition that you should be using. And I will choose to interpret it as the health department would be and allow it.
Fair enough. Russ?
Everything's been said. I'm in favor of the tight tank.
Steve?
But not everybody said it. I also support the tight tank.
Okay, so we're going to be looking for a motion in a second to issue an order of conditions. So the question is, Jen, do you have an appropriate set of conditions for that? Our normal conditions?
Yeah, we can come up with an appropriate set of conditions, Mr. Chairman. I mean, you know, the staff's concern is going to be basically, now that you're allowing this structure in your barrier beach, the alteration to the coastal dune. So we'll probably ask them to provide photos of the coastal dune and then photos afterwards, and make sure the coastal dune is let me just grab the plan real quick. So I think it was a little bit, help me if I oriented it the right way. There is a little bit of the dune that needs to be impacted for the installation of the tight tank. So the conditions would be to put that dune area back and restore that back with beach grass and everything. I think that's the only Rush, you may be able to help me with this. So how do they get the piping from the structure to the tight tank?
They'll probably just run it down one of the posts.
One of the posts. So are we allowing both units to hook up or not? Because remember, she said she wanted her neighbor to hook up too.
No.
Really the neighbor, the co-owner.
No, there's no, they're two co-owners. One's there sometimes and one's there another time.
But
no, they're not two different toilets. It's one toilet.
It's
one
co-owned.
house, one toilet.
2 owners, 1 house.
Right.
Hang on one second, guys.
Attorney Wall is still with us if you want to put him up.
No, he can't. You can't, not during deliberation.
Oh, that's right.
But we asked that question.
Anyway, Russell answered my question. I just didn't know, Russ, if they needed to sort of like trench somewhere. But if you're
well, obviously when they bring it
the
down to the
post.
stand, Jen, they're going to have to trench.
No, I understand.
Tie it in the tank, but this is probably going to run it down one of the columns.
Okay, I just want to make sure I have the appropriate conditions now that you guys are allowing this.
That's how they normally do them. So
okay.
So I have a question though. In the minutes, Brian Wall mentioned that there's already a structure there, and there is already a structure there. There's a gray water septic system, a cesspool. So are you going to require, are we putting another structure in there? Or are we going to take that?
No, they're gonna pump and abandon. They should be pumping it.
So we're adding another structure. So there's a structure, and we're adding a second structure underneath this house. Is that correct?
I don't understand the question, Betsy.
in other words, if you're not eliminating the cesspool, there's actually 2 structures. Is that what you're saying, Betsy?
That's what I'm saying.
So they should remove the cesspool blocks that are there. Is that what you're talking about?
That's what I'm suggesting.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so just to clarification, guys, during the summer month, my co-owning neighbors have a porta potty placed on the property for shared usage.
Yeah, I brought that issue up. I was the one who originally asked. Okay, and there's only the one structure, and I think Attorney Wall explained how they're co-owners, but they're not letting someone else come in and make another connection to the tight tank. There's only one connection to the tight tank.
You clear with that, Jen?
1 second. Okay, yes, I'm clear. One connection. All right. So the dune, the one connection. Okay, pump and fill. Got it.
Well, I was just suggesting, Jen, that we don't pump and fill. We pump and remove.
Remove.
Got it. Pump and remove. Okay. I'm good, Jen. I'm good.
Well, I'll make a motion then to accept as discussed.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to accept the order conditions as discussed, which would allow the tight tank. I'm going to take the vote. Betsy,
Gladfelter, no.
Courtney,
Bird, no.
Kevin,
Did you call me, Mr. Chair?
yes, sir.
Oh, O'Brien, yes.
Mark,
Gurney, yes.
Peter,
Walsh, yes.
Russ,
Robbins, yes.
Steve.
Yes.
All right, it is 5-2. The order of conditions is issued. Thank you. That is it, folks.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Gladfelter, second.
You guys all look so glum. You don't want it to end yet.
Bruins
All
are
right.
losing.
Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Gurney, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. IT, please stop recording.